that he was going to snap my neck because of the way that he was jerking my head around. And he had all of his weight on me, and he had all of his weight on my body, and he was jerking my head around with his hand in my hair.
Carroll County 911.
Ma'am, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
What did you kill him with?
A loaded gun in the house.
Can you tell me where the gun is right now?
The gun is in the house. I laid it on the bookshelf.
Where are you?
I'm standing about 10 feet from his dead body.
Okay, are you sure that he's dead?
He's dead, ma'am. He's completely dead.
Okay. And how long ago did you shoot him?
I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, not even that long. Like
10 or 15 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Shayna Hubers.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder.
Guilty! The woman who shot her boyfriend because he was about to ditch her for a Miss USA contestant sobs as she is convicted of murder. And there were audible gasps in court as the jury decided Shayna Hubers' sentence today.
We, the jury, fix the defendant, Shayna Hubers' punishment for the offense of murder at life imprisonment.
As the judge polled the jury,
Is this your verdict?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Hubers turned to make eye contact with her family. Shayna Hubers shot her 29-year-old boyfriend Ryan Poston 6 times. Prosecutors said she was in a jealous rage because he was pursuing a relationship with Miss Ohio, who testified for the prosecution.
How did he strike you?
Funny and smart.
Ohio! Audrey Bolte was second runner-up in the 2012 Miss USA pageant. She testified that she met Ryan Poston on Facebook and he asked her out. She was waiting to meet Poston for a late-night drink when he was shot by Hubers, who found their Facebook messages setting up the date. Hubers drove over to Poston's apartment outside Cincinnati where she confronted him. She claimed she shot him in self-defense.
I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
The victim's mother spoke after the sentencing.
Ryan believed in the justice system, always, and it has not failed him.
There's a room in Kentucky where time doesn't pass the way it does for you and me. Fluorescent lights that hum, concrete walls that absorb sound, a door that locks from the outside. Inside that room, among hundreds of others just like it, there is a woman who once couldn't stop talking. The cameras loved her, the interrogation rooms, the courtrooms, the headlines. But the cameras left. And what remains is this, the after, the endless, silent, suffocating after. Welcome to Case Within, where we don't just tell you what happened, we show you what it cost. If stories like this pull you in, stay with us. Subscribe, because some truths don't scream, they settle. This is the story of Shayna Hubers, not the crime, not the trial, but what came after both. October 12, 2012, Highland Heights, Kentucky. A 911 call comes in at 6:37 p.m. The voice is calm, almost conversational. She says she's just killed her boyfriend, 6 shots, self-defense. When police arrive, they find Ryan Poston, 29 years old, attorney, dead on his kitchen floor. And they find Shayna Hubers, 21 years old, waiting to explain. The interrogation footage would become infamous. She talked about Ryan's insecurities, his nose, how he'd always wanted it fixed. She said she gave him the nose job he always wanted. She laughed, adjusted her hair, asked if she looked okay. She wasn't giving a statement, she was giving a performance. Psychology calls this impression management, the compulsion to control how others perceive you, even in crisis. But Shayna wasn't managing an impression, she was constructing an identity. The smart one, the misunderstood one, the one who had no choice. The media couldn't look away. The 2015 trial was a spectacle, cameras everywhere. Her testimony stretched across days. She explained Ryan's temper, his control, how afraid she'd been. The jury didn't believe her. Guilty, murder, 40 years. but a juror had lied during selection. The conviction was overturned. She got what performers crave most, another show. The second trial came in 2018. By now, the footage had been shared millions of times. Her face was everywhere. This time, there was no technicality to save her. Guilty again. Life imprisonment, parole eligibility after 20 years. Shayna was led away in handcuffs. The cameras followed as far as they could. And then they stopped. Because here's what documentaries don't tell you. There's a moment when the story ends for everyone else. But for the person in handcuffs, the story doesn't end. It just stops being interesting. If you've ever wondered what happens when someone's worst moment becomes their only identity, stay with this story. And if it makes you think, let us know in the comments. Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women sits in Pewee Valley, about 20 miles from Louisville. Red brick buildings from the 1930s, chain-link fences topped with razor wire, guard towers watching everything. Inside, there are roughly 900 women. Shayna Hubers is one of them. Inmate number 264,793. The intake process strips you of everything: your clothes, your jewelry, your name. You're photographed, fingerprinted, searched. You're given a khaki uniform, a bedroll, a cell assignment. Maybe 6 by 9 feet, concrete walls, metal bunk, steel toilet sink combination. This becomes your world. 5:30 a.m., wake to a buzzer, stand for count. 6:15 a.m., breakfast, oatmeal, powdered eggs, coffee that tastes like regret. 7:00 a.m., work assignments, kitchen, laundry, factory work for 25 cents to $1.50 per hour. Shayna, educated, articulate, might spend her days folding industrial linens or scrubbing floors. 11:30 a.m., lunch, count again. 1:00 p.m., programs, GED classes, counseling. These aren't optional if you want parole. You sit in circles, sharing your story until it stops feeling like yours. 4:30 p.m., dinner, count. 6:00 p.m., recreation, 1 hour in a concrete yard. 10:00 p.m., lights out, final count. The prison never gets quiet. Someone's always crying, arguing, screaming in sleep. The fluorescent lights stay on all night. You close your eyes and wake up tomorrow to do it all again. There are no mirrors that matter here, no audience to perform for. Shayna is not special. She is a body in a system designed to process bodies. In the years following her 2018 conviction, the world moved on. The pandemic hit, prisons locked down, 23 hours a day in your cell for months. True crime podcasts covered her story in passing, one episode among hundreds. Investigation Discovery aired Signs of a Psychopath. It featured the interrogation footage, the nose job line. It aired once, then disappeared into the streaming void. Shayna's case, once a phenomenon, became a footnote. But inside, none of that matters, because Shayna is inmate 264,793, and institutions don't remember, they process. In June 2018, Shayna married another inmate, Unique Taylor, a transgender woman serving time on unrelated charges. No white dress, no flowers, just paperwork and signatures. Maybe it was love, maybe manipulation. Maybe just an attempt to be someone in a place designed to make you no one. The letters she wrote in the early years have slowed. Visitors became rare. Media requests stopped. What's left is a woman in her early 30s, with nothing to perform and no one to perform for. Just time, an ocean of it. This is the part most documentaries skip, the after, the endless after. If you want more stories that go deeper than the crime, subscribe to Case Within. Shayna Hubers has been incarcerated since October 2012. That's 4,748 days, As of January 2025, 113,952 hours. Every single one regulated, monitored, controlled. When Shayna was arrested, Barack Obama was president. Instagram was barely 2 years old. The world kept spinning, and she stayed still. Inside, the changes are different. The food, high in sodium, low in nutrition, takes a toll. The stress manifests physically. The lack of sunlight causes vitamin D deficiency, depression. Women in prison age faster than women outside. Studies show it. Shayna entered at 21. At 34, the mirror shows someone she doesn't quite recognize. There's a psychological process in long-term incarceration. Researchers call it prisonization. At first you resist. I'm not like these people. I don't belong here. But slowly you adapt. You learn the unwritten rules, the hierarchies, the economy of favors. You learn that showing emotion is dangerous, so you stop. After a decade, you start to forget what freedom felt like. Not intellectually, but the feeling, the ability to walk out your door, drive a car, choose what you eat becomes abstract. Studies show predictable patterns. Learned helplessness, the belief that your actions don't matter. Emotional numbing, the inability to feel with intensity. Diminished sense of self. When every decision is made for you, you forget how to be yourself. Institutional dependency. The prison becomes comfortable because it's predictable. The outside world becomes terrifying. This is happening to Shayna right now. She's not the person who entered prison in 2012. That person couldn't survive here. So she's become someone else, quieter, smaller, more compliant. The system calls this rehabilitation, but it's not transformation, it's erasure. Shayna has 7 more years until she's eligible for parole, 2,555 more days. And even then, parole is not guaranteed. The parole hearing will be brief. A panel questions. Do you understand the severity of what you did? Why should we believe you won't reoffend? She'll have to answer carefully, authentically, convincingly. And here's the cruelty. Shayna's crime was performance. She performed victimhood. She performed fear. And now, to earn freedom, she must perform authentic remorse. But how do you prove authenticity when authenticity itself can be performed? Shayna controlled Ryan's fate. She decided when the relationship would end, how it would end. And now she cannot control a single moment of her own existence. The irony is so complete it almost feels designed. Some of you are wondering if she deserves to get out. Others are asking if she even can. Drop your thoughts below, but keep it thoughtful. We're here to understand, not to judge. Let's go back to the story Shayna told. In the interrogation room, she said Ryan had been controlling, violent, that he'd grabbed her, frightened her. She said the gun went off in self-defense, 6 times. In court, her defense built a narrative: battered woman syndrome, fear, survival. Shayna testified for hours. She cried, she trembled. It was compelling. But the prosecution had evidence that contradicted every word. Text messages showing Shayna pursued Ryan, constantly, obsessively. Messages where she begged him not to end the relationship. Testimony that Ryan had been trying to break up with her for weeks. That he was planning to take someone else to a social event because he was done. Forensic analysis showed the trajectory of the bullets. The first shot hit Ryan while seated, the second while standing trying to flee, the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth while he was already down. This wasn't self-defense, this was execution. So here's the question: did Shayna believe her own story? Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance, the mind's inability to hold 2 contradictory beliefs. I am a good person. I killed someone I claim to love. Those 2 statements cannot coexist, so the mind rewrites one. He was dangerous. I had no choice. I'm the victim. And if you repeat it enough, to police, to lawyers, to juries, to yourself, it becomes real. Not factually real, but psychologically real, the truth you can live with. But in prison, there is no audience for your story, no jury to convince. Just you and the facts. 6 bullets, a locked door, a man who wanted to leave, a woman who wouldn't let him. Shayna's intelligence becomes her prison within the prison. Because she knows, she's smart enough to know what the evidence shows. But she's also smart enough to have constructed a counter-narrative so elaborate that it feels true. And now she's trapped between those two realities. There's a concept called narcissistic injury, when someone whose identity is built on superiority is confronted with failure. The psyche doesn't bend, it shatters. For Shayna, the reality is this: she is not special, she is not misunderstood. She is exactly what the jury said she was. She wanted to be unforgettable, and she is. But not as a victim, as a punchline, the girl who joked about the nose job. That's her legacy, and she has to live inside it every day, alone. In the early years, maybe she still believed she could make people understand. But the years pass, and the certainty fades. Did I really fear for my life, or did I just want control? These questions don't have clean answers, and in the silence of a cell 3,000 nights and counting, they echo. This is where it gets uncomfortable, not because of what she did, but because of what it reveals about all of us. If this story is making you think differently, hit that like button and share it. Stories like this need to be told carefully. Kentucky Correctional Institution for Women, a Thursday, or maybe a Tuesday. Shayna Hubers wakes to the 5:30 a.m. buzzer. She's 34 years old. She stands for count. A guard marks a clipboard. She is accounted for. Breakfast oatmeal, a bruised apple. Work detail, laundry, industrial washers, the smell of bleach. She loads sheets, folds them, repeats for hours. She earns 40 cents an hour. By month's end, maybe $50. Afternoon program, cognitive behavioral therapy. The counselor asks her to reflect on her triggering events. Shayna gives the answers she's supposed to give. I felt rejected. I felt worthless. The counselor nods, takes notes. Shayna wonders if she even believes what she's saying anymore. Recreation, she sits on a bench, watches women play cards. The sky above is vast, open, she can see it but can't touch it. Back to the cell, free time. She could watch TV, read, write a letter, but to who? So she lies on her bunk and stares at the ceiling, the same ceiling she stared at for 13 years. This is her world, and it will be for at least 7 more years. If Shayna is granted parole in 2032, she'll be 41 years old. She will have spent her entire 30s incarcerated. But parole isn't guaranteed. Statistics show many violent offenders are denied on their first hearing. Come back in 5 years. If that happens, she'll be 46, then 51, 56, 61. At some point, she stops being a cautionary tale and starts being an old woman in prison. But let's say she's granted parole. She walks out at 41. The world has changed. Technology she doesn't understand. Everyone she knew has moved on. She'll need a place to live, a job, who hires convicted murderers. She'll have conditions, curfews, one mistake and she's back inside. And after 20 years institutionalized, freedom doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like chaos. Studies show long-term inmates struggle profoundly. Depression, anxiety. Some even want to go back, because prison, for all its horrors, is predictable. But there's a strong possibility Shayna never gets out. The parole board looks at the nature of the crime: premeditated murder, 6 shots, media coverage. They look at remorse. And how do you prove remorse for a crime you spent years claiming was self-defense? They might decide she's still a risk, still manipulative, Still the woman who joked in the interrogation room. And they'll deny her again and again. Ryan Poston never got old. He's frozen at 29 years old, forever young in photographs. His family still grieves. His friends still wonder what he'd be doing now. Married probably, a father, a successful attorney. He doesn't get to do any of that. Because on October 12, 2012, someone decided he didn't get to leave. And now that someone sits in a cell, aging, forgotten by most, existing in a limbo where time passes but life doesn't. Is this justice? I can't answer that. But does suffering, decades of it, equal justice? Or is it just this, the long quiet, the machinery of punishment, turning and turning? Because life sentences aren't about rehabilitation, they're about disappearance. Making someone so small, so quiet, so invisible that they cease to matter. And Shayna Hubers, who once couldn't stop talking, who once needed to be seen, is disappearing. One day at a time, one count at a time. Until she's just a name in a file, a number on a roster, a body in a cell. And maybe that's the real punishment, not death, but this. The slow, silent, endless dying, while still breathing. This was not about rage, it was about control. Control over Ryan, control over narrative, control over perception. And now she has none. The cameras are gone, the story is told. What remains is not a monster, not a victim, just a person locked in a room, locked in a life, locked in a choice she cannot undo. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about justice, consequence, and what it means to live with what we've done, leave a comment. Subscribe to Case Within, because we're not here for the shock. We're here for the truth. And sometimes the truth is the quietest thing in the room. Ryan Poston wanted to be a lawyer, a father, a man who mattered. He was 29 years old, and he will always be 29 years old. That is the sentence that never ends.